€100,000 for anybody who can win a downhill World Cup on a belt-driven bike. I thought it'd be cool to make a video about this new era of mountain biking and how I think this year is going to be a pivotal point for mountain biking. A few years ago, Gates, who are a manufacturer of carbon belts for bikes, they put a prize pot forward and said, look, if any racer, male or female, wins a World Cup downhill race on a belt-driven bike, they're going to get a prize purse of €100,000. Last year, I think there was only a couple of brands using bikes with belt-driven drivetrain. And it seems that this year, in this last week anyway, there's been a number of companies who have come out, bike brands have come out and said, here's our new ride for 2025. And we've actually put a belt and a gearbox on the bike. So this is a really interesting thing for me because I have been riding a Zero now for like a year and a half, and I can only vouch amazing things for having a belt-driven bike. Bikes used to have, and still do have, derailleurs, which is a stupidly expensive thing that hangs off the bottom of the back of your bike. It's prone to hitting things, it's pretty weak in most places, and if you do smash it off a rock or whatever, the chances are it's going to smash off and you're going to have to pay out for another one. It's a nightmare. Having everything inside a box and a simple belt is one of the most genius things I've ever come across. The belt needs minimal maintenance, will last 4 times as long as a traditional chain. All the gearing is done inside a box, so there's no derailleurs to smash off anything. It's much safer, it's much quieter, and just less maintenance all around for any rider or racer. So this year it looks like there are a handful of teams who are using a belt-driven bike, and it obviously seems like they're going after this big prize pot. I mean, who wouldn't be? It's 100 grand for winning a World Cup race. You've got Aon Racing, which is being headed up by Reece Wilson. We've got Atherton Racing. They actually teased out a picture the other day of their gearbox bike, and now they've come out with even more details, and I think it looks really cool. Zeroed, obviously, and Intense bikes as well. I haven't actually seen the Intense bike, but if there is something that comes out before this video goes live, I'll put a picture of it so you can see it. It's just interesting seeing this develop, because I see downhill racing as the Formula One of mountain biking. So a lot of the innovation and testing is done at the highest level. Similar in other sports as well, like rally and Formula One as well. But mountain biking downhill specifically, you see a lot of the new products being tested and prototyped at these races at the highest level, because that's where they're being tested to their absolute max, the highest performance, and just going through absolute abuse. Before, the technology then trickles down so an everyday rider can get access to this technology and all these new products. If we take that into account when it comes to belt drives and gearboxes, I can kind of see that following the same path. It's going to be used at a World Cup. It's starting to get more and more used now on World Cup downhill bikes, which is really cool. I think this year is going to be revolutionary in terms of drivetrains. I mean, take wheels for instance. Wheels and wheel sizes was something that was a massive advancement over the last few years in mountain biking, and it all started in downhill racing and trickled down. So we used to have 24-inch wheels, 26-inch wheels, the mullet mix size wheels, and then people started venturing into 27.5 wheels and now up to 29ers. But all that technology has trickled down, and we haven't really seen much of an advancement in terms of drivetrains in the mountain bike world for a long time. Now, the first thing I ever saw of gearboxes, which is what fascinated me, was the Honda Gearbox bike. It was a downhill bike that Honda made. It was a project. I don't think it was ever supposed to be a long-term thing for Honda. That was when I first started mountain biking, and I was super inspired by that project. I thought the bike actually looked boss. I thought it looked amazing. And what was even more unique to me was how much of a secret they kept this gearbox. Like, nobody knew what was inside it. And then I remember watching a reveal video of what was inside the gearbox, and basically what they did was they just put traditional bicycle gears in a box. It was that simple, but it worked. It kept everything hidden away, it kept everything safe, the bike was silent, it looked more like a motocross bike than a downhill bike, and there hasn't really been much in terms of advancement since then. But just imagine what happens if one of these riders wins a downhill World Cup race and wins that prize pot. Just imagine what's going to happen to the sport as a whole. All these racers who are adopting the Gates carbon belt drive and the gearbox, they all have winning potential riders on their team. If racers start winning on gearbox and belt-driven bikes, the whole field has to follow. And then I think it's going to become widely and more adopted in downhill racing, and then the technology is going to trickle down. They're not like a new thing. Gearboxes and belt drives have been around for a while. We just haven't seen them so much in downhill and enduro mountain biking up until the last few years. Like, they're on commuter bikes, they've started to come into e-bikes now as well, which is amazing. I actually just don't see a downside to belt-driven bikes or gearboxes. I just like the idea that everything is housed in a box and it's run on one single belt that needs minimal maintenance. You don't need to oil it or lube it. It's probably more environmentally friendly, I would argue. Easier to work on for a mechanic as well if you're a racer. I've actually been washing my bike before and picked up the chain oil to oil my belt because I've just forgotten, like, oh damn, I actually got a belt, like I don't need to do this. And then you just clean everything else off and put it away and it's done. It's a weird feeling, but it's like becoming the new normal. So let's talk a little bit about my experience on a gearbox and belt-driven bike on the Zero. I have ridden my downhill bike and my enduro bike for the past year and a half, which is a Zeroed G3 and a Zeroed Katipo. I probably pronounced that very incorrectly, I'm not Kiwi.
Finally get to test ride a Zeroed Katipo.
Sorry. The enduro bike was the first belt-driven bike I got my hands on. I rode that for about 5 months before I got my hands on the G3 downhill bike, and both bikes are mind-blowing. On the Zero, and I guess this is exactly the same on any other gearbox bike, the gearbox is positioned in such a way, it's right in the right place for the center of gravity. So the bike tracks really well, it grips really well, and because of that, the suspension works better, the tires grip more, and as an overall result, you just ride better. You ride faster, you can jump better. My Zero is a high pivot, so that means the bike actually gets longer as it goes through its travel, which can be a little bit different for some people. The Zeroed Katipo is just a traditional linkage. Like, they both have their purpose, and it's only a matter of time for Zero to come out with a belt-driven gearbox e-bike, which is just going to be the future. If that comes out, when it comes out, I should say, that will revolutionize mountain biking and e-biking as we know it even more. Well, I don't get why you wouldn't have a gearbox and a belt drive on an e-bike. Like, why wouldn't you? I think the belt can actually take more pressure as well as you're pedaling, which makes more sense with an e-bike when you're using the motor to get up steep climbs. And just having that peace of mind that you don't have some stupid thing hanging off your rear wheel that at any moment could snag off anything and just rip off, and then your ride is literally ruined. And you could be miles away from your car or from help or safety. The belt obviously has one downside that I see. If it snaps, you can't just replace like a split link in a belt. It doesn't work like that. You have to carry a spare belt. But at the same time, they weigh next to nothing, and they roll up or coil up pretty nice and small in a small backpack. It's not really too much to faff about or worry about. And what about the cost of a gearbox and a belt-driven bike? I think the pinion gearbox and the belt drive is very competitively priced against a full group set when we're talking about SRAM group sets. I think it's a little bit heavier, but at the same time, I would rather have a heavier bike, only slightly, that is like, gives me more peace of mind, rides better, and I just get an overall better experience on my mountain bike ride. So I'd be curious to hear what you think on this, where you think this whole belt drive gearbox technology is going. Where do you see things going? Have you got a gearbox? Have you ever ridden one? Would you ever consider one? Because I know there's a lot of people who watch my videos who are on the fence about a gearbox and always ask questions about them. They almost are waiting to see what happens in mountain biking as a whole before they go all in and buy one. But from my experience, I've had nothing but good things to say about a gearbox and a belt driven bike. But I would love to hear your thoughts on the future of mountain biking and this €100,000 prize pot that Gates are putting up. I think downhill racing this year is going to be one of the most exciting disciplines in mountain biking to watch compared to other areas of mountain biking. It's going to be an exciting year. Hope you enjoyed this little snippet. See you in the next video.